Fantastic
No
moment for
seats.
everybody to arrive. And welcome to the Married with Deadlines COVID edition panel. I will continue to let people in. I'm sure people will be arriving for another couple of minutes. But in the meantime, I should pass it over to our guests. We have four guests on this panel, but because it's a special panel, it's actually two couples. So I don't know, who wants to go first? Jeff and Marcy?
Wes will.
We
What?
can if you would like, Cal.
What are you talking about?
Fine with me. Don't
I
crack
think
yourself
we should
up
go
while you're
alphabetically.
drinking, Yvonne.
Yeah, alphabetically,
Jeff.
Jeff is first, both by first name and by last name. So I guess you get to start, Jeff.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jeff Mariotte. I also write as Jeffrey J. Mariotte. I am married to Marsheila Rockwell over there. On my screen, she's as far away from me as you can possibly be because I'm on the far left and she's on the far right, but I don't know what your screen looks like.
My screen does not look like that. I tried to get farther away from Wes, but I'm only one away.
Whenever you talk, you fill my screen, Vaughn, but nobody else does, so I don't know what's going on.
That's your settings up there at the right. You've got
I
it
don't-
set on like the talking person
Oh, I
fills
see.
the screen, yeah.
I see.
And I don't want to fill your screen, Jeff.
Well, I'm
And
not
if you put
complaining
on
about it.
gallery, you get everybody.
That's just, yeah. That's just too big. I don't want to be
Oh,
that
I got
big.
it. Okay, I see. Now I can see the other people who are here. Hi, folks.
Hi.
Anyway, I am married to Marcy. We are both writers. We have written books together. We have written books separately. We mesh well together when we collaborate, but when we do individual stuff, we tend to do slightly different, somewhat different kinds of stuff. But we understand the stresses and the problems and the pleasures of being married to a writer.
Who's next?
You spoke up, so I guess you are.
Oh,
Man, unbelievable. You're on my list.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Navarro, and I'm a writer, and I'm also an artist. I am married to Weston Ochse over there on my screen. He's on the far right. We mesh well together sometimes, and sometimes we don't. Let's see. We've written stuff together. We write, I think when we write apart, we write fairly differently. We're working on something together right now. He's still breathing, which is a real, check mark in the positive side. So, hey. Next. Don't all jump up at once.
Marcy, why don't you go? And then it's like person, other couple, person, other couple, and so on.
Okay. I'm Marsheila Rockwell. I am Jeff's wife. I write mostly fantasy, dark fantasy, and horror. Some of that I write with Jeff, but he writes a lot of other stuff like westerns and police procedurals and stuff like that that I don't really write too much of. So, and yeah, I'm downstairs and he is upstairs, and hopefully you're not getting any feedback from one.
No, it's all good.
I also have the cat here, so if suddenly everything goes haywire, it's because she has attacked the cords and knocked the laptop off.
Or just done a cat butt walk across the screen.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
We can hope.
Weston.
well, my name is Weston Ochse. Sometimes known as Weston Ochse. And I totally got freaked out when Marcy started talking because I really thought that was her back in the corner of Jeff's office.
I know it's kind of strange
Because there's a
head
back there with a head with long hair, and it's like, is that where you keep her tied up, Jeff? Nope.
I will explain momentarily. Go ahead.
I'm not going to ask that question. But in the meantime, I'm an author. I've been writing for about 25 years. And like Jeff said, it's nice to live with another author because they kind of understand the time constraints and the dedication one has to do. Like for instance, last week I said, hey, let's not watch TV after dinner because I really need to go up and do some work. And she's like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. Because she totally gets it that when you feel behind the eight ball, it's all about the writing.
And he has to keep working to buy me bonbons. So hey,
Makes sense.
So this panel is about Married with Deadlines. You have two couples who both write. You have potentially the same deadlines or separate deadlines. How do you cope with that, and how has COVID changed that?
Oh my God, he was home so much. Oh my God, like every day for 8 months. I couldn't even.
I have.
Normally she invites over a bunch of the neighborhood boys and has fun with them, like when I'm at work. But because I wasn't at work, she was deprived of that. And this is what she's really talking about. So she had
adult boys, adult boys,
crusty old me, right? Well, in Arizona, if you're over 12, you're an adult. So
no, adult. 21.
This is being
21,
recorded.
12. I mean, you could be
used against you in a court of law. So
yeah, this is being recorded, Weston Ochse.
It's okay. As long as you mispronounce my name, I can't be guilty because it's not me.
Good point.
Oh, I'll find a way. Anyway.
This is our day. This is how we communicate every day, all the time.
Marcy, were you starting to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say I was actually surprised to see both Wes and Vaughn here because I figured one might have killed the other after being stuck together for so long. Jeff and I are used to it. I was in a car accident a couple years ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I haven't been able to work since, so I've been home. So we had a chance to get used to that arrangement before COVID started. So
I hope you're all right.
Oh, well, I still can't work.
Ow.
I can write sometimes. And the head behind Jeff, just to explain that real quick, it was a cutout. He had a cutout that was in the end zone of every home Nebraska Huskers game last year when they couldn't have actual audiences.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, and I couldn't find anywhere to put it, so I just stuck it behind my computer monitor. So that's where it is.
It's slightly larger than life size. It's a little freaky.
Yeah, it's freaky. Okay.
But yes, as she says, we've both been in the house together for almost a couple of years now. We share an office. What you're seeing, all those Wonder Womans behind me and the head behind her computer, that's her desk back there, and this is my desk over here. So we're, if we both roll back at the same time in our chairs, we'll bump into each other.
Oh, okay.
Very close quarters, but we're used to it, and it works for us. And the other person is always there when you can't think of that word, and you go, "Hey, what's the word for when?" And the other person often knows.
It must scrolling through porn though pretty awkward.
That's hard.
Especially since she sits behind you and she can see your screen.
Yeah, and I'm not wide enough to block it all.
Well, I have a door that comes in handy because every so often he forgets that it's right down the hall from him. And I have heard, what is that song, Watermelon Sugar? I have heard that so many times at loud volume that I'm lucky I don't hear it in my sleep.
You want to hear it again?
Apparently he's not anywhere close to getting tired of it.
I don't know that one.
Don't play it, Wes.
It's good. Watermelon Sugar. It's a good song.
Okay.
Especially when you hear it for the 865th time. Fabulous. Fabulous.
Listen, Mrs. Allison Krauss, I don't even want to hear it.
I haven't played anything on this CD player in probably, I don't know, 4 months.
I know it's because I taught you how to use YouTube.
No. What I want to do is I want to be painting so I can go in my studio, because as a fabulous birthday present, he bought me, this is why he's still alive, he bought me an entire old-fashioned stereo setup.
Cool.
With a turntable and a receiver and speakers and what else? What's that fourth component? Oh, there's also a CD player,
an equalizer, and an amplifier.
And I have something like 430 LPs in my closet shelf in my studio. Cool. Things like Aqualung.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
CCR. Yeah.
Yeah, I still have several hundred albums downstairs and a turntable, and I got a cassette deck for Father's Day because my 16-year-old, no, older, like almost 30-year-old cassette deck finally gave up.
Yeah.
So Marcy got me a new one, so now I can hear my cassettes and my albums.
So I have. Isn't that thing that you bought me? Does that have a cassette player, Wes? It does, doesn't it?
Yes.
And a DVD and a CD player, because I have cassettes that I made in the 80s and dating myself. Things like Murray Head on it, and
So when I write, I have everything off. It's all silence. That's how I work, and it's easy for me because I'm in the office and nobody else is in here except the ferret. So how do you cope? I mean, do you need silence? Do you need noise? And how does that work when there's two of you?
Well, we don't share an office. And if I want to block out his obnoxious music, Watermelon Sugar for the 252nd time, that's when I start closing the door. I do have a little CD player in here. When I write, I don't need music, but if I do have music, it's usually instrumentals. There are no words, because if I do the words, I'll start singing along to them, and it's a little hard to focus on both of those. And when I paint, anything goes loud.
I've never had a problem writing with music on, even if it's music with words. It's typically not very loud, and it's typically just like Sirius XM on my iPad while I'm working, because that's here on the desk and she's often right behind me and she doesn't want it loud. But yeah, it doesn't disturb me to have music going, and I would rather write with some noise around me than absolute silence.
I used to not really like to write with noise. I'm not one of those people who makes a playlist for what I'm writing, because like Vaughn, if I can hear the words, then they replace the words that are in my head.
Right.
But with COVID and with, being forced to stay home because of COVID, because of the car accident, we also have 2 kids still in school that are at home, who were doing virtual school, which basically meant I was also homeschooling.
Yeah.
So trying to write, Jeff telecommutes, so he's working all day at the different computer that you can't see. So I just had to learn to write with kids and Jeff working and MSNBC on in the background and cats chasing each other, and you just learn to tune it out, which is a skill you have to develop as a parent anyway. So
Wes?
Well, I started my nascent writing when I was jotting down stuff in notebooks before I even really thought about putting things together. And when I was reading, I began when I was mechanized infantry back in the 80s. And So here I am in the back of an M60 tank, which smells like, I don't know, it smells like oil, sweat, and hopelessness. Driving across a really bumpy terrain. You can't see anything. It's noisy as hell. And I'm just sitting there scribbling out notes. So from that day to this day, I'm able to live in total chaos and write in total chaos. I could be, Yvonne probably thinks I'm close to being a hoarder in here at this point, but with the amount of chaos I have in my office, at least visually, and doesn't bother me. Noise doesn't bother me. You can talk to me, and I'll write. Somehow along the way, I've been able to compartmentalize pretty well. Whether that means I have multiple personalities and you're talking to one and I'm working with the other, I don't know. But the fact is that noise does not bother me at all.
Except if it's a barking dog from next door.
Except it's the fucking barking dog from next door. That's the one thing, because it's monotonous. It's just the same. I mean, if it would change notes, right, it'd be fine. But it's the same, B flat the whole time.
I mean, if it would do the Tennessee howl, from the Volunteers hound,
blue tick coon hound, exactly.
If it would do that now and then, it would be okay.
One of the first professional writers that I met was Louis L'Amour, and he said that he could write with his typewriter on a TV tray in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard with traffic going back and forth, and it wouldn't bother him. And that he had done so to prove the point.
Now that's like Harlan Ellison, who
like
put
Harlan
a table and a
window.
typewriter in the window of a bookstore and wrote.
Yep. And I heard that, and I heard Harlan's stories, and I decided that was the kind of writer I wanted to be.
I used to be able to
write no matter what.
I used to be able to write with a lot of noise around me. Back when I lived in Chicago and I worked at the law firm every day, at an hour and 40-minute commute one way. So once I got on the commuter train, that was it. I just kind of I could tune out almost anything. There were two things I couldn't tune out. There was, if someone had, earphones plugged in and had them so loud that it was like little buzzing music right next to my head, that's almost impossible. Because it's like you want to kind of listen to this, but you can't. Oh, it drove me insane. And the other one was when someone would sit there and read over my shoulder. I'm like, would you please stop that? Oh. But for years, I did a lot of writing. That was my main writing time.
How has COVID affected this? Because that is in the panel description. Now, this is the COVID edition of Married with Deadlines. So how has COVID messed with it? Did we cover all that earlier, or is there more?
Well, Wes is here all the time, or he was here all the time, and so everything was messier.
During COVID, so my office, I work for the federal government, and I work in a SCIF, which is a special compartmented facility, which you need a high level clearance to work in. And I couldn't telework because I didn't have appropriate computer systems or protection. So what ended up happening is I sat home because at that point they said, if you have any of these indicators, don't come to work. So I sat home for 8 months. Well, during those 8 months, I wrote 2 novels and 3 novellas. So I at least was able to do something, right? But also, I totally missed being around people. I mean, when I came out of it, I was kind of like this hermit scratching his eyes, going, "Am I in the human race anymore?" Because it was hard, because I hadn't really seen anybody or been in any social environment, and so that was kind of weird getting out of there. As far as being a writer, I mean, COVID helped me. I mean, I was able to do a lot of things that I'm not able to do because right now I have 4 jobs. I'm a life coach. I teach college online. I work 40 hours a week, and I write full time. So, I don't have a lot of free time.
My bonbons are expensive. Sorry.
That's right.
My day job is remote anyway, so it didn't affect my day job at all.
What's your day job, Jeff?
I'm a managing editor for a legal education company.
Okay.
So we teach law students.
Yay, baby lawyers.
Yeah, lawyers, baby lawyers. So like Marcy
Pre-baby
said,
lawyers.
yeah, on their way. We help them get there.
Uh,
So like Marcy said, I turn to that computer and then I turn to this computer, and sometimes I will confess, because they're not listening during the day, if I have a thought that has to be put down right now, I can just swivel the chair over and
right.
work on this computer and then go back to that.
One of the things I've seen with, it's not just authors, but creative people of any description during COVID is depression. You know, has that affected you? And is there any advice you can give to people who are suffering from depression due to COVID to get back to being productive?
Well, I mean, I deal with depression anyway. It got worse after the car accident because I couldn't go back to work to a job that I really loved. And then having to also, you know, try to homeschool the kids, and
That's a lot.
They were struggling. And so, yeah, unlike Wes, I did not write 2 novels and 3 novellas during COVID. I was finally able to do a couple of short stories and some poems, and I've actually sold a lot more work in the past year than I had, you know, probably in the couple of years before then. So it's been good in that sense. But I mean, the biggest thing I think is that you just have to be kind to yourself. You know, the world is really weird right now, and none of us have ever had to deal with anything like this before. And it's okay to not be okay, you know?
Yeah. I feel it was kind of nice having him here. My job was kind of lined out. I worked at Fort Huachuca for a government organization too, but my job was lined out in 2014, and I never went back to work for someone else. But like you, Marcy, I really loved that job. I loved it, and it just was eliminated. You know, some top middle management at Raytheon just looked down and said, "Oh, we can cut costs," and drew a line through my job. And you know, so I was at home alone 5 days a week for quite a long time before COVID hit. And you know, the longer you're out of a job, I think for the most part, the farther away your connection gets from the people you worked with, no matter how good you were friends there, unless you lived next door. And then before that, 2 years before that, I had been moved from one part of the building to another part. And the people on that other part kind of disassociated with me. So all the friends that I had down in Sierra Vista kind of faded away. So it was kind of nice to have him here for a while. And now he's back to work, and it's back to, you know, business as usual, but with COVID. So I don't go out as much. I do have acquaintances at the art gallery now, but well, I love them. 90% of them are probably in their 70s or higher. And while I'm not that young anymore, I don't think like somebody my age. I think at a much younger level. So I tend to think like a 40-year-old, I think, in here, although I'll say 30, but the truth is more like I still think like I did when I was 40. And these are people who are thinking in their 70s. And I'm just like, that's fun. Yeah. So it was kind of nice to have him here for a while, even if he did make a mess of everything.
What's your individual routines as writers?
I've been talking enough. You guys talk. Wes, how about you talk?
My routine is if I'm on contract, which I've been fortunate to be on contract for the last few years, pretty much straight. I do 5 pages a day. If I do 5 pages, I'm happy because that means I have a novel done in 3 months. So it's not stressful. You get to the point. I'm sure that Jeff does 20 or 30 pages a day. But the fact is, doing 5 is not that hard if you think about it. Because I have people come up to me all the time saying, "Oh, you wrote a novel? I would so much like to write a novel." I said, "Well, can you write 1 page a day?" They're like, "Of course." Well, there's a novel done in 1 year. Can you write 2 pages a day? Well, of course. Well, there's a novel done in 6 months. Can you write or 9 months? Can you? And then we get into 5 pages, and they're like, "Well, maybe." See, it's just a matter of for new writers outlining, and for folks like me, I'm more of a pantser because I intrinsically know when I'm getting to Act 3 or Act 2 and Act 3. I know when the rising and falling action is. I know without even thinking about it, when things are going to happen, and when things need to happen. So it becomes very easy for me. So as long as I get those 5 pages in, I'm really happy. Anything else is gusto for me, Hal.
Talk about your routine.
There is no routine. I don't. It could be in the morning. It could be at the night. It could be anywhere. It doesn't matter when I do it. It's just a matter of doing it. Sometimes I go to work and I'm blasted all day long, and I have to wait till I come home. And sometimes I go to work and I write a little bit between phone calls or something like that. But it doesn't matter. Just 5 pages a day.
I've been on some pretty tight contracts this year. I sold a 3-book Western series with deadlines 3 months apart.
Ooh.
So, and for me, it's easier to pound away at a long stretch than a few pages a day every day. So I mostly am working on weekends. Oh, that was a cat too. It's like, what the hell is she doing? So I'm mostly working on weekends, and I'm trying to hit, at least 2,000 words a day. Lately, I've been typically hitting around 5,000 words a day on Saturday and on Sunday, so I can get 10,000 words done in a weekend, and get the books done on time.
Goody wants to say hi.
No.
Hey. Goody.
Kitty and a puppy both at the same time. How nice. So that's my routine. I work about 44 hours a day or a week at the day job. Then I make dinner and try to have some relaxing time in the evening. And weekends, I'm at the laptop pounding away.
So you work on the weekends too? Same schedule?
On the weekends, it's just the writing.
Marcy?
I don't have a schedule. I sustained a spinal cord injury in the car accident, and I had to have a cervical neck fusion, but I have continued to have nerve pain all through my neck, shoulders, arms, wrists, and hands. So
I feel for you. I'm sorry. I've been there with my spine. I know that.
Yeah, no, I know you've had back surgeries too. So I write when I'm not in pain, and the act of writing ensures that I will be in pain again soon. Mm-hmm. So it's right, maybe a day or two. I can get in a good couple of hours over the course of the day, and then I can't write for the next several days. I have to recuperate. So, there's there's no real set schedule. I just write when I can, and I try not to be too hard on myself when I can't, because there's not really anything I can do about it.
That's true.
So.
That's true. Well, I am, and I have been for a while, notoriously undisciplined. I tend to put all the chores and household things first. I'm not quite sure how that happened over the years, because it used to be my writing was always first, but I think I had fewer things to take care of than maybe, an easier to take care of house or something. I don't know.
Less than me.
I mean, him strewing stuff everywhere and leaving fans and lights on, and growing things in the bathroom. I wasn't supposed to mention that. Sorry. But I'm trying to get better at it. It's like this ongoing fight, but like what Marcy said, stop beating yourself up over it. The last time that he was deployed, when he was in Afghanistan, I went and I got a tattoo right here that says "Flip Your Life," and it meant start doing the stuff that you enjoy and that you love first, because there are a lot of the other stuff that you put first. It can wait. The world won't end if I don't do the laundry today, if I wait 2 or 3 days. I still have a little problem with that, because I like for things to be out of my hair. I'm like OCD, and I like things to be out of my hair so that I can sit down and not have to think, oh my God, I have to do this. It's still waiting to be done, but I'm still working on that. However, my friend Eunice McGill and my other friend Angel Lee McCoy have put together this writers group called Wiley Writers. Their website is wileywriters.com. And they, one of the things that they are doing, they have a lot of fabulous stuff going on over there. But one of the things that they are doing is they're having Zoom work sessions from Monday to Friday from 10 to 12. And I joined the first one. They've been doing it for a while now, but I joined one for the first time yesterday. And I kind of really got a lot done. The Zoom is open and they're there. And because I hadn't talked to either one of them in a while, we spent probably half an hour just yakking. But then we buckled down to work, and I felt like I got a lot. I was actually editing, but I got a lot accomplished. So my goal is to actually do that from now on, Monday to Friday, that solid 2 hours. And what Eunice said is that you get these solid 2 hours done, and you can get a lot done in 2 hours with no interruptions, none. Turn off everything else and just write. Do your research later if you have something that needs to be researched. And she feels that she can get those 2 hours done. She could come back to it if she wants to, but after that, the day is guilt-free. Whatever she wants to do, she has gotten a chunk of writing done, because a lot of people like me, if I don't get any writing done to a certain point, I feel like I should have been writing. I should have done this. I should have worked on this. And I think that's going to be, a really good thing. I know Eunice said something about she's completed a quarter of a novel in 5 weeks by that solid 2 hours of writing a day. So I think that's going to be a good thing. I'm going to be better.
I should ask anybody in the audience, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we can pose them to the panelists. And while you're thinking about what questions you might want to ask, I'll ask this last one from me. It sounds like you've all done pretty well with COVID. You're either doing as you were or maybe even a little better. And if you're not, it's because of something other than COVID. Is there an experience component to that? You've all been writing for a while. None of you are new writers. Would this have been different if this was your first year as a writer?
I don't know. I'm old. I've been writing for a long time, and for a while in Chicago before I moved to Arizona, I was a full-time writer. And actually I was a lot more disciplined back then. So I don't know that it would have been any different for me. Anybody else?
That's impossible to answer, Hal. I mean, because I have the experience I have. It's like, it's like asking me just a question I can't possibly answer because I haven't experienced that. So
I will say I think it probably would be harder on a baby writer than an experienced writer, because a baby writer wouldn't give themselves leeway to have bad days, or like Vaughn was saying, feeling like, oh, I should have gotten it done, or feeling bad for not reaching a word count goal or a page goal, or whatever it is. Whereas, experienced writers, we know that even if for some reason we don't meet the goal that we had wanted to reach that day, we're able to make it up another day.
Yeah.
We know that because we've done it before, so it's not a big scary thing for us, whereas I think it could be for somebody who hadn't been writing and experienced the challenges of life while they're writing. I mean, there's always going to be stuff that comes up and makes things more difficult than you anticipated when you started writing. But part of getting that experience is just learning how to cope with those things. And because we've all been doing it for a long time, we cope better, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, for people starting out, or actually even those who've been doing it for a couple of years, the dangers of continually beating yourself up for not making a word count or not writing enough, or feeling bad because you didn't get to it, is burnout. Writing becomes, and this has happened to me, writing becomes more of a chore than fun. And even though it's a job, this is a job that's supposed to be fun, because nobody writes because they hate it. If you hate writing, you're not going to write. But you can burn out on this, and you just keep grinding away, and that's the key word. It turns into a grind instead of something you enjoy.
I don't know. I wrote my first novel when I was a maintenance man for a big shopping center, and I had a shop where all my equipment was, and I could it was right below where the offices were, but there was another little room, little tiny maintenance closet across the shopping center, well away from the offices and the bosses and everything. And I had a loose leaf notebook and a pen and paper. I wasn't writing in a tank, but it was often noisy, and I was interrupted by radio calls and various emergencies. But when I had a few minutes, I would go in and I'd write a page or a couple of pages if I had time. Mm-hmm. And that novel will forever be unpublished, as it should be. It was a big sword and sorcery novel. And it was not very good, but I didn't pressure myself to have a word count or a page count or anything. I just, as I had a few minutes free to myself, I would go in and I would write. And I got the book finished eventually. Took a while.
I didn't start with the word count, requirements, or I'm going to do 2,000 words a day or 4 pages a day, until I'd been writing for several years. And, once I started doing that, then it became focusing more on the word count, yeah, and how high the word count was, or how high the page count was, instead of whether I was having a good time doing this or not. And that is not a good thing. It's not.
But sometimes if you have a contract, that's what you have to do. So.
Yeah, I know that, but to just do it on a continual everyday basis for everything, you know, and I used to have this like automatic counter on my computer that would count it up, and I would post it on, I think it was MySpace or something. And it was just awful. It's just awful.
Yeah, that's no good.
Any questions, folks? Please throw them into the chat if you have questions.
I do want to point out that I didn't always write 5 pages a day. I mean, like Jeff, you know, when I started, I just wrote what I wrote, and sometimes it wasn't very much, and sometimes it was a lot. But the late great Tom Piccirilli was an author friend of mine, who won a few awards back in the day, both in crime fiction and horror fiction, and he sadly died of cancer. But he took a lot of us very brand new writers in the late 1990s under his wing. And one of the things he did say was his 5-page rule. And I akin it to running a marathon. You know, when you run a marathon, you don't look at the finish line, because if you do, that's so far away. You're going to end up just psyching yourself up and stopping. But if you just look at the space in front of your feet, all you have to do is just take that next step, that next step, that next step. It makes it so much easier. So really, that's just a shortcut for me to write a novel. And once I discovered it, it actually gave me some focus and some format to it. Because otherwise I would write 1 page one day, 6 pages another, go 2 days without writing, and then write 4 pages. And, you know, it was fun, but I always felt like I wasn't, you know, showing up. I wasn't being present as an author. And you know, I look at some of my literary idols, and they've always been present as authors. And so I felt that to be present, you need to write every day, or at least if you're not writing, research, because it's, you know, it's who you are.
Andrea made an interesting comment about separating writing and working from home. And I think that's might be an issue that a lot of people are having, when all of a sudden your writing space now also becomes your workspace because you're having to work from home. And that I imagine that could be an issue for some people, because what you consider maybe your creative space now all of a sudden becomes your workspace. And maybe I think, I haven't had that issue, but I think that for me, it would be hard to have to do both things in both places, because you know, I get into a certain mindset when I'm writing, and I have a little bubble, and I'm there with my words and my ideas. And if, no matter how much I loved a job, if it intruded into that bubble, I think it would make it more difficult for me to write. It wouldn't be, I don't know, it's not exactly a safe space. I can't think of exactly the word that I want to use, but
Is it me? I lost.
Yeah, just lost.
Yeah.
I can see Marcy's still talking, but I've lost
Marcy, I
sound
think
from it.
you muted yourself.
writer, and you found yourself in that position, having to do both things, that could be an issue. So
I can actually speak to this because I'm here anyway. I work from home, but I work for a bank in IT. So I have a work laptop to the left, and I have a keyboard underneath that I put on my lap that I type on my desktop, which is a home machine. And for things like my music criticism, I outside of the last month getting CoKoCon set, I review a couple of albums a day. So I'm listening to those albums while I'm working. So I'm doing my bank work while I'm listening to the albums, and then I'll just pop over and start taking notes, and then I'll write them up, and then I'll come back. So I'm bouncing between both work and home. And the way I managed to reconcile that is that my 8-hour days take about 10 or 11, because I don't want to steal the time from work to do my writing stuff, my home stuff.
Right.
And I just make sure I work a little bit longer because of that, and keep that in mind.
You know, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's just a balance. So over to you, Yvonne.
Back when I was working in an office, and actually afterwards, when I was working at the law office, I read an article, and it really struck me about how some employers are really, they're getting more than what they pay for with their office workers. And I actually agree with that. And now with COVID and people working from home, I think it's probably even worse. Back then, they were talking about how people were available by phone or email outside of working hours. So they would work their 8 hours, or in the case of, for instance, lawyers, sometimes that would go up to 16 hours a day. And I'm not kidding, for the younger lawyers, they really work them to death. And then, you know, or on the weekends, they would have to constantly check their voicemail. They would have to respond to messages on the voicemail. And then as time went on, it became the email thing. They would have to constantly check their email. So, you know, an employer is paying someone, a young lawyer, an executive assistant, or whatever, for this 40-hour work week. But they're actually, you know, they're working anywhere from 45 to 55 or 60 hours a week because they're putting in all this extra time. And I remember I worked for a lawyer, his name was Scott. Boy, he was a jerk. But he would call and he would leave me messages at work on my voicemail. And then, you know, I didn't check that on the weekends. I went home. I'm done. I was a legal secretary, and I 5 o'clock, I left that at home. And if someone wanted to call me at home, it would be the managing partner I worked for, not the associate. And David pretty much left me alone. They didn't call me because there was really nothing that I could do over the weekend that would help them. But I remember coming in one Monday, and he was like, I left you all these messages on your voicemail. Don't you check your voicemails on the weekend? And I just looked at him and I said, no. He said, well, why not? I said, because you don't pay me enough. And his answer was, oh, well, I guess you probably don't make enough money for that. And that, you know, the employers are, especially now that they blended COVID into there, you know, I tend to, and the teleworking thing, and I wonder, I won't say that it's for every job, but for some jobs, I'm thinking that employers are getting a lot more than they actually pay for.
Yeah.
Done with my rant.
Yeah, it's true. And
25 years made me bitter. No.
We let them. Well, talking of rants, is there anything that drives you nuts? We've talked a lot about COVID here, but you know, the other half of this panel is married couples working at home together. So is there something that just absolutely drives you nuts, and you want to kill your better half?
When Wes plays Watermelon Sugar, it just drives me crazy.
Do we have time for this? Do we have time for this list?
Well, we don't seem to have questions, so I believe we've got 10 minutes for this.
Come on, Wes, let's hear it, if you dare.
Oh, honey, it's living with you is just so wonderful. I can't imagine.
Peaches and cream.
I can't imagine anything better. There's absolutely no problem whatsoever. Yeah.
Well, in all honesty.
Oh, here it comes, Jeff.
No, Jeff works all day. He does his writing. He cooks all the
West
meals.
cooks. West cooks, yeah.
He does most of the housework because I can't. So I am very grateful. There's not much that he does that
Oops,
drives
sorry.
me crazy. Wes, on the other hand,
So I couldn't help it.
Yeah, I consider myself very lucky. So
Well,
that's
thank you.
Yeah, really. I mean, he's not too bad. I mean, he does little things that bug the crap out of me, like leaves lights on and fans on. But really, in the scheme of things, you know, and he leaves stuff around the counters and stuff. But in the wide scheme of things, there's nothing that I would murder him over, you know. And like Eunice and Greg McGill, I really live by what they decreed when they got married. They said no divorce and no murder. And I think this is good. There's nothing that he does that I would murder him over. So I think we're doing okay.
You know, I think part of it is that we love these people and that's why we live with them. And when you love someone, you are usually willing to overlook the little things that might drive you nuts if it was somebody else. So I can't think of anything that Marcy does necessarily that I would feel inclined to murder over, or that would make me pull out my hair while I'm trying to work.
Yeah. Although I will say that you tend to, humans in general tend to, while they may love someone, they tend to give their worst to the people they love and their families. Those are the people who see them at their worst. So, you know, I think we all have to have a lot of patience and a lot of tolerance and love.
we have to have those for ourselves too, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know.
Pets help.
Yes.
You know,
Pets help a lot.
a little thing on the bulletin board there that says when all else fails, hug the dog. And it really works. It works.
It doesn't work with cats because when you hug them, and you end up bleeding and hospitalized.
It's not all cats.
Oh, okay.
It's our cats.
It's Jonesy.
Hal, where'd you go?
I am on mute. Apologies for that. I see no further questions, and I've asked a few times, so I think we've covered what people wanted to ask. So we've got 6 minutes left. I'll give you that time to pimp out your next work, your current work, what you're working on,
right,
and tell us where we can see you next.
I'll go. I have a book coming October 27th or thereabouts. It's called Blood and Gold, The Legend of Joaquin Mariotte. It's about the gold rush era Mexican bandit who terrorized the California gold country. And it's a historical epic. It's huge. And it's written with a guy named Peter Mariotte, who is a direct descendant of Joaquin Mariotte.
Oh, that's cool.
And has family stories that have never been shared in public, never been told. Some of the story is still fictionalized because nobody knows everything that went on there. But these specific stories that are interwoven into it, no one's ever heard. So there have been a lot of books about Joaquin, but never a book like this one. It's coming from a small Western press called Sundown Press.
Very cool.
Besides that, I have the 3 semi-traditional Westerns featuring Cody Cavanaugh and Freeman Douglas. They're coming from Wolfpack Publishing. Probably late this year into early 2022. They're semi-traditional because I like to think of them as Westerns that people who love Westerns can enjoy and people who never knew that they could love Westerns can enjoy. They're more honest depictions of the kind of people who were really in the West than most traditional Westerns, which are mostly about white men, because there were white men in the West, but that wasn't all there were in the West. There were women, and there were Black people and people of Asian descent and people of indigenous people and gay people and transgender people. And the West was a strange place full of lots of people, different types, and most of them don't make it into fiction, but they're making it into these.
Good.
And then I have also just sold a police procedural series to them. So after I finish the third Cody Kavanaugh book, I'm going to jump right into this police procedural series, also from Wolfpack Publishing.
Cool. Marcy, what you working on?
Well, I'm working on something I can't talk about, so.
No, don't you hate that?
Yeah. I have a short story in an anthology that just came out today, called Bodies Full of Burning. It's from Sliced Up Press, which is a little press, but they've been incredible with promotion and getting interviews for the different authors and submitting the stories for awards, and I've been super impressed with them. But the anthology is menopause themed.
Oh, I should have written for that.
And my story is about Lady Bathory, but probably not as anybody has ever imagined her before. So that was a fun one to write. I also have a poem that's coming out in Augur magazine, which is a fantasy magazine out of Canada.
Uh-oh.
Lost your audio again.
Yeah.
Marcy? Marcy, are you muted?
About
There.
what?
No, she's not muted. She's just your sound
Just
went
lost
out
her
again.
signal.
Oh,
And
sorry.
bizarrely, the moment I come back and say she's not muted, it comes back.
Oh, what was the last thing you heard?
We got the Bathory, and then you mentioned the poem, and that was in
Augur.
Augur magazine, which is a fantasy magazine out of Canada, which is publishing a lot of good stuff. The poem's called Reservation Fairy Tales 101 Final Exam. It's written in the form of a final exam, and it is a very sharp criticism of the way the missing, murdered Indigenous women and girls epidemic is treated by most people in Canada and the United States. So I'm pretty proud of that poem, and I'm really looking forward to people getting to read it and seeing what they say.
I definitely like to read that poem for sure.
Wes, go ahead.
So Bone Chase from Simon & Schuster just came out in paperback at the end of July. That's my ephemeral novel about the idea that giants might be real. And in October, A Hole in the World comes out, which is a loose sequel to Burning Sky and Dead Sky. This takes one of my characters from those books, Preacher's Daughter, and starts a new series called Preacher's Daughter Saves the World. And the idea about a hole in the world is that what if a city in America and a city in the UK suddenly disappeared and only 2 or 3 people knew it ever existed? And it's the effort to find out why they disappeared, and et cetera, et cetera. I also had just I had a side hustle going on for a while, and then A24 decided to come out with Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So they came out with the Green Knight movie, and I did a modernization of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight because I found out that the first modern English modernization was done by a woman named Jessie L. Weston. So I felt that 110 years later, it should be Weston Ochse who was going to do the 21st century modernization. So using what little scholarly skills I have with my Master of Fine Arts degree, I produced and wrote a modernization with a very scholarly type intro for Sir Gawain the Green Knight, and Yvonne did the illustrations for it.
Right now we're working on something together that we can't talk about. Hey. And I just sold a story, a Predator story, a while back that hasn't been published yet. I guess it's going to be published. But writing wise, I'm mostly focused on this thing that we can't talk about. I am totally non-writing. I'm the featured artist at the Huachuca Art Gallery for September and October, which is kind of fun because being the featured artist, I can put anything I want in there. So I have paintings in there. I have painted steer skulls in there. I have photographs in there, and I have books in there. And so far, I've sold 3 books. So that's kind of fun. I think
Okay.
we did it.
Thanks, Jeff. I was just trying to find, not announced now. That's why I can't find it. That makes total sense. And we are a couple of minutes over, so I will thank you all for attending. I'll thank you all for presenting. This has been fabulous. This is a wonderful panel for me because I know pretty much everybody here, and I haven't seen most of you in far too long. So
Yes.
as Andrea mentioned or Duncan mentioned earlier, it's way too long, and we hope to see you all soon.
I don't understand why everybody keeps their cameras off. We like to see people.
It's because they're all naked, covered with jelly.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Well, maybe I don't want to see them. But if the jelly is thick and dark, hey, there she is. There's Andrea.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, there's
That's
yeah.
pretty,
See,
Andrea.
there we go. There we
I
go.
don't
my
have a
defense, I
webcam
was
on this
coming to
machine.
work.
It's on the other.
Thank
So
you,
I will shut
everybody.
this down so that we can
All right.
open up the next panel.
Yep,
But
thanks,
thank
everyone.
you all. See
Thank
you around the rest of the
Bye.
Nice
con.
to see
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.